Well, first of all, they're filled with lots of interesting facts, first of all. And I don't know if y'all can see the actual pictures and such. It made me think about back in the spring, my fourth grader shows hogs. And this was our first year to show hogs, and I am learning so much. My husband enjoyed showing hogs in 4-H, but this is all new to me. And so we went to a hog auction, and they all look the same. They're, you know, I'm like, how do you even know which one you're bidding on? And so here was an article in this ag mag that talked about ear notching, and it also talks about animal identification when you start talking about pork producers, and you know, what do you do if one of your hogs gets sick, and that's how they can easily keep up with that kind of stuff, so that they I thought that was interesting. But we had a conversation about the ear notching, because I was like, how do we know that's ours? We bought one for a friend, and I'm like, how do we know which one's which? And the ear notches tell you which litter, and I mean, it's like a whole Morse code kind of thing going on there. But for me, not understanding, you know, I didn't show hogs. I didn't know anything about it, so it was a learning experience. But the Ag Mags, again, a class set. You can look in your resource guide. They're put out by the American Farm Bureau, and they have just so many different commodities, corn, soybeans, a lot of great vocabulary for your kids, and you can get a class set so that every kid has one. And I'm not sure, going along with your volunteering hours, Tanna, you know, the older kids could always read to the younger kids. I know one of our colleagues, she uses the Ag Mags as a center, and FFA kids will read these. You can laminate them, or you can download them on a PDF and print them off. But I just wanted to mention those when you were talking about your feed sack activity. All that. The next activity that I'm going to do is an oldie but a goodie, in my opinion. And it's called Lunchtime Favorites. And, you know, just talking again about the My Plate, your proteins and grains and things like that. I'm going to just kind of step back. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. So for this activity for your kids, you could get up and move around. Obviously, I don't know what that's going to look like in the weeks to come, but you give all the kids in your class a paper plate and ask them to draw and color their favorite food, okay? And so they might draw a hamburger or a cheeseburger or a piece of pizza, or, you know, whatever their favorite food may be, broccoli, French fries, I don't know. I drew strawberries, and I drew pizza, which we're having for lunch. And so anyway, so then you're going to go around the you need 2 hula hoops, and for those of you who've been around as long as I have, this is the Venn diagram. Obviously, y'all are familiar with that. And so you're gonna, one hula hoop represents plant, and one hula hoop represents meat. Okay, and so the kids identify. They come around and they place their plate under a plant. So strawberries are obviously a plant. Pizza could be both, because the crust of the pizza would be grown from a grain. The cheese comes from a cow, which is dairy, and it could go in the middle for both. So you would go around the room and you would discuss with your kids what their favorite foods, if they are plant-based, are they both, or are they a meat? And so that activity, you can also, the grocery store sometimes will donate their circulars, and you can make it a math activity. You know, look at the items that are on sale, talking about the weight versus how much, you know, you're going to pay for the particular fruits and vegetables. Again, anything to bring together the life skills with the food that they eat, and making good healthy choices for what they want to put on their plate and those kinds of things. This is just a good get up and move activity. And it's called Lunchtime Favorites. Something else I would like to mention, though, I meant to talk to you guys a little bit about this before I did my activity, is the lending library. we've talked a lot about a few of the books that each of you received in your tubs, but your county farm bureaus have what we call the lending library. And I think the third week in November is National Ag Week. And so you can check out books at your lending library that are ag-related books. That there's several. I don't have mine with me, but I wish I did. So if you're having a hard time, or maybe you don't have in your classroom agriculture books, or you're working on growing those things, and you want to read, the third weekend of November is our ag week. Excuse me. But every county farm bureau should have the lending library. Okay, so for our next activity, Miss Valerie is going to share with one I'm really excited to see and hear about. Okay.
Yes, so I'm going to be talking about aquaponics. And aquaponics was something that I've been interested in for years. And at the National Ag in the Classroom Conference last year, it was in Arkansas, and they had several sessions on aquaponics. Now, we know with talking about what amount of land we have available, and by the year 2050, our world population is going to be over 9 billion. We're going to have to get creative when it comes to feeding our people. As Chris said earlier, when a nation is a hungry nation, they're an angry nation. And we are very blessed to live in the United States, where the farmers in our country not only produce enough to feed our country, but also to export and to feed all over the world. If we did not have that availability, then our people would start to have to depend on other nations. When we depend on other nations, we are at their mercy for our blessings. So we are very blessed to live in a country that has that availability. Now I'm going to try to share my screen with you again. Technology is great when it works, huh? Okay, so aquaponics is a combination of two different principles. The first one is aquaculture. Aquaculture is the growing of aquatic animals such as fish and shrimp, and these animals can be sold for consumption, or they can be sold for, say, stocking ponds and rivers. TWRA does that a lot when they're trying to increase the populations of certain types of fish. The second principle is aquaponics. Aquaponics is the growing of plants in water. Now, you have to have some type of base, but for the seed to rest, but the roots will go into the water, and there are various different types of vegetables that can be grown in this type of environment. The one that I used in my classroom was lettuce, because one, it sprouted quickly, and two, it grew quickly. The kids were able to do this project themselves. I was able to get enough funding for third, fourth, and fifth to send all of the materials home that they needed to complete the project. We did start the project at school, one per classroom. Now, unfortunately, we did it in February of this year. So if you know a little bit about our history, a month later, we went home from school and we didn't go back. So I would not knock it off as a failure. It's just, I would probably redo this project with my students. So aquaponics is the combination of the two principles of aquaculture and then hydroponics. So it's been a beneficial relationship between the plant and the fish within their environment. The plant's going to be growing with its roots in the water, and when the roots get into the water, the fish can be placed below the plant. The fish will release its waste into the water as the form of nitrogen, and the plant takes in that nitrogen from the water as fertilizer. The fish will eat the root hairs on the plant and not harm it. So the next video, it's a little snippet It's from Plant Chicago. And I'll actually show you, well, JoAnn will talk in a bit about the online resources. And this is actually where this video came from. See if we can get it to work for you.
Hi folks, thanks for tuning into our video. I'm James with Plant Chicago. We have lots of people ask us, what is aquaponics? In essence, aquaponics is a method of growing food that combines two ideas. On the one hand, you have aquaculture, which is raising fish or other aquatic animals in an enclosed environment. On the other hand, you have hydroponics, which is growing plants in water without soil. You put the two together, and you get aquaponics. By combining aquaculture and hydroponics, aquaponics demonstrates closed-loop food production. By closed-loop, we mean capturing the waste of one process and using it as an input into another process. Here at Plant Chicago, we operate several aquaponics systems in our indoor demonstration farm located at the basement of the plant. Here's how our system is set up. We start with a simple IBC pallet tank. IBC stands for Intermediate Bulk Container. I should mention here that we use food-grade IBC tanks from a local bakery that we've repurposed for our aquaponics systems. We use this for our fish tanks. In fact, each system has 4 of these IBCs for raising fish. We add an IBC tank as a settling tank and another for our biofilter. Next in line is the grow bed. Ours is made from lumber, some of which is reused, and a pond liner. One more IBC for our sump tank, and finally a water pump. Then we plumb it all together with PVC pipe, add water, fish, and plants, and off we go. Now, system designs can take many different forms, but the concept of aquaponics works much in the same way in every system. I'll explain using our system as an example. We raise fish in tanks, in our case tilapia, but other fish such as trout and perch can be used as well. We feed the fish, and the fish eat and then excrete waste into the water. The primary waste product they create, and the one we're most concerned with, is ammonia, or NH3. Ammonia is released into the water through both the fish effluents as well as through their gills, but can become toxic to the fish if not removed from the system. The beauty of aquaponics is that we can use this toxic byproduct of aquaculture to our advantage. Here's how. The water from the fish tanks flows through a settling tank where the solid waste settles to the bottom and is removed from the water, since it's the ammonia we really want, which is dissolved in the water. The water then flows into our biofilter where the ammonia is broken down by beneficial microorganisms. It's first converted into a form of nitrogen called nitrite, or NO2, by a type of bacteria called Nitrosomonas. Next, another type of bacteria, called Nitrobacter, then converts the nitrite into nitrate, or NO3. Nitrate is the form of nitrogen that plants can most easily absorb. This process is called the nitrification cycle, and it's a process that occurs naturally in the environment. All we do is provide the conditions for these natural processes to take place, and the fish and bacteria do the rest. From the biofilter, the water, now rich with plant-friendly nitrogen, flows into a grow bed where plants sit atop floating rafts with their roots growing down into the water. The plants absorb the nitrates in the water as their source of nutrients, and as this takes place, they help to balance the system chemistry and clean the water as it flows back to the fish tanks to repeat the cycle. We add no fertilizer for the plants. All essential nutrients are provided by the fish waste. We also add nothing to the system for the fish other than food, otherwise our plants would be affected. The system is kept healthy and in balance by natural processes. And that's aquaponics. I hope you found this video helpful. If you have other questions about aquaponics or other Plant Chicago programs or the meaning of life, let us know in the comments below. And while you're at it, give us a thumbs up, share this video with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more videos. Thanks for watching.
Is in the middle of Chicago, and it's in an old industrial building. Kind of fast forward it, maybe we'll be able to see what it looks like in their basement, which is super cool. So what Plant Chicago does is it allows a very urban area to grow food that can be sold in a local farmer's market in their community. So they grow lettuce, they grow kale, they grow lots of different types of vegetables. They also have fish that they have someone that will process them in their facility and then sell them as fresh fish in the farmers markets. So this is a way, if we go back to the population that we're going to have by the year 2050, we're going to have to get creative with the way that we feed our nation. And aquaponics is one of those types of activities. So if we look at the screen here, this is the materials that I'll be using for the activity. We have a plastic bottle, a coffee filter, a seed, and this is where you can tie in the research aspect of it. With aquaponics, there's an endless amount of vegetables that can be grown. However, it depends on your setup, what's the right type of vegetable. You can also grow potatoes, but if I'm using say a 2-liter bottle, I wouldn't want to grow potatoes because the setup is not proper for that. I'm also going to use a peat pellet. I'll give more information about that in just a second. A string, and then a fish. Let me change back over.
Can you hear me? There we go. Somewhat. We're working on the sound. Okay, so you're going to start off with a plastic bottle. In my instance, I asked the kids just to bring in an empty 2-liter bottle, rinse. You don't need the lid. I did find that our like juice containers, like a juice bottle, it does work better because the funnel part, which is you're going to cut it off and invert it, it sits better in the bottle. Okay, so I have a smaller version of this. These are like just a flavored water from Walmart. It's a smaller option if you can't have kids bring in an empty 2-liter. So you're going to cut the funnel part off, and it's kind of hard to tell, but I have used a like a box cutter and actually made little X's. Now the video that I will link in just a minute, it goes on to tell that water that is not allowing any oxygen in can actually create nitrate poisoning in the water, which will end up killing your fish. So when you are working on this project, you have to make certain to put an X in a couple of places around, and then fill your water up just below that. That allows oxygen to get into the water, and then you won't suffocate your fish. So you're then going to invert the funnel and put it into the back in the bottle. You want the water to come up just below where the top part of the bottle will rest. Excuse me. You then need a string, and you're going to put the string through the hole of the funnel. Part of it is going to be in the water. Some of it is going to be above. And what the string does, it's going to hydrate your plant until the roots get into the water. If you don't, then the plant is actually going to be too dry and it won't survive. So once I have the string in place, I'm going to use a coffee filter and put it in the funnel. This is going to be the base for my peat pellet, just in case the peat pellet does loosen some and you don't want any soil to fall into the water, because when the fish is in there, you don't want it to have dirty water. So then I'm going to use my peat pellet. And peat pellet, there's different types. This is just more of a disc, and it almost looks like a cookie, but it is highly compressed soil. Once they've taken all of the liquid out and have heated it, it's compressed. It has a fabric covering on the outside. Roots can still go through there, but it just kind of keeps the soil in place. So I'm going to take the peat pellet and then lay it in the coffee filter so that it's just setting in there. This is going to be the base for the seed. So then you can do a lettuce, you can do tomatoes. It depends on the size of your container. There are other types of aquaponics, but this is the one that's kind of the easier version of it. So then you just take your seed. In this instance, I actually have an okra seed, and I'm just going to lay it on top of the peat pellet. Now, by the end of the day, the peat pellet will have expanded because it's got moisture again. You just have to double check the seed and make certain that it's down in the peat pellet, and then wait for germination. Now, to make this an aquaponics, we're missing something. And the thing that we're missing is a fish. Now, I could put a fish down here already. The problem is he doesn't have any type of food. So you could put him down there, you would have to feed him fish food. But if you wait until the plant grows and the roots go into the water, the roots have something called a root hair. If you were ever to examine a root, they would have all these little tiny root hairs coming off of them. The fish will actually eat on those root hairs, but it doesn't damage the plant. In turn, the fish, when it has waste, and the kids love that part, because you know when you talk about poo at any point, they think it's funny. It's actually in the form of nitrogen, and then the plant will intake the nitrogen from the water, and it adds it as fertilizer. So the kids, you can extend it through research. You can talk about the life cycle. You can talk about relationships among living things. And again, I think those are 4th and 5th grade skills as well. It's just a really cool activity. So a couple of side notes. When you go to cut, I had the students bring in their 2-liter bottles, and the only reason I wanted them at school is so that I could cut it for them. Then once they are cut, I just send it back with them with a Ziploc bag and all the materials that they needed. When we went on quarantine, we were in the middle of this project, and so I just kind of updated the kids. I did a video that we posted to our social media accounts for our school, and some of the kids' parents were able to message back and post pictures of what their plants look like, or it reminded them to complete their project because they have it there, and it gave something else for the parents, an activity for the kids to do as well. So this is something that you can definitely do virtually. If the kids have the materials, you can talk about it. You can have them measure the plants as they grow. You can have them chart. So there's a lot of ways that you can extend this lesson. Once the plant gets larger, if you wanted to, you could also transplant it into soil, into a garden somewhere. So that's one of my favorites.
Very good. Y'all have been so great hanging with us all day. And does anybody have any questions or comments before we go into our last activity? And then after that, we'll have online resources, and then we'll shoot it back to Chris and to tell you about some fabulous opportunities. Does anybody have any questions or comments before we move on? Okay, great. Y'all are awesome. Oh, Lacey, do you have a comment? Just everything's okay. I like that emoji. So I mentioned the national conference, and actually was going to do a session on the bee. And so I, for those people that know a little bit about National Science Teachers Association, Emily Morgan has a series of books out called Next Time You See. And so she has a book, Next Time You See a Bee. She has one, Next Time You See the Moon. So it's all science. It's accurate. It's full of beautiful photographs and some really great information. The readability is definitely upper elementary, but I recommend give Emily Morgan's books a look. You probably recognize the name if you know about NSTA, because she is actually one of the co-authors of Picture Perfect Science, which is another series of wonderful books that coincide with our science curriculum. So We were actually going to do a workshop on bees and talk about some really cool things. So I'll share this resource. And then there is a theme about the Ag Magazine. There is an Ag Magazine dedicated to bees. And then the National Honey Board, very helpful and willing to give, donate things as needed to your classroom. And they are always a participant in the National Ag in the Classroom Conference and have a really nice booth set up, as well as doing some presentations. I think one year they dress up as a bee. So bees are something that go along with gardening. And every year when our gardens start blooming in the spring, we have kids on the playground, because the gardens are around our playground, and we have kids that get stung. And we have teachers that worry because the gardens are causing the bees to come in. And we also have a pollinator garden, and we are a monarch butterfly way station for the city of Knoxville. So yes, bees are a necessary pollinator, but at the same time, you know as well as I do, if you leave them alone, they're not going to sting you unless you sit on them or something. So it's nice to see that our monarch butterflies and our bees are coming back to the urban Knoxville area. As I'm speaking across the street from our school, there is a little natural pollinator garden that's occurring from a t-shirt shop of all places. They bought the piece of property to block a parking lot from going in, which I applaud them for, and it's full of sunflowers. It's just in full bloom right now. It's beautiful in the middle of concrete jungle, Knoxville. So another resource to sort of preface what we're going to do next, sorry, it's backwards. It's How Many Seeds Are in a Pumpkin. It's a good little book. And just talking about estimation and mathematical skills. And I know that we're not supposed to do themes, or at least in our district, but you know, October lends itself in November to those studies of pumpkins and apples. And I think as long as you can correlate the science and the social studies standards, I think it's a wonderful way to get kids excited about learning. So our last hands-on activity is going to revolve around pumpkins. And if you go in your wonderful turquoise resource, the alphabet soup, it's called many things, but this in our book, it's called Q is for Quick Pumpkin Pie. And I asked the home office, wouldn't it be P for pumpkin pie? And it's not, because we have Play-Doh, which is, if you've not made the fruity Play-Doh, that's a great little recipe for. So sometimes you just have to be creative, and quick pumpkin pie is a recipe that I'm going to be going over with you today. In your resource packet. I will also give you a full disclosure. I was eating lunch when I was watching the other two presentations, and guess what it was? I forgot to bring my lunch, so I'm eating the feed sack. So see, it can even come in handy to eat lunch if you need to. So I try not to crunch too loud. The recipe does call for a gallon-sized baggie, and I will say, do not scrimp on baggies. I have had product failure when I try to use the cheaper brands. So I would not scrimp on these things. And it's very embarrassing when this pumpkin pie stuff goes all over your outfit. So kids love this. I've used this all over, and it's just a favorite. We've actually done this on the news before, and it's hilarious to watch the kids. Because if you do a pre-survey of children, most of your kids do not like pumpkin. They're going to tell you they don't like it. Ask them how to make pumpkin pie, and you'll get some really interesting responses. So this lends itself to an ELA writing prompt in the upper grades to sort of go through the steps on how to make a pumpkin pie. So none of them make it this way, though. So you'll take a gallon size Ziploc baggie, and the directions in our book on page 26 said to use 2 2/3 cups of milk, 2 packages of instant vanilla pudding. So if you want to go the math route and measure, that's awesome. But today, I'm not going to do that. So I think JoAnn said, that we are in the world of convenience. And so I brought the already prepared, wonderful, and this is great for the individual kids to use too. They can have their own smidget of the vanilla pudding. And I promise that's what makes this pumpkin pie good. So you could actually give each child 2 of these and it would make it extra creamy. So all you're doing, and I'm just going to do it for time's sake, I don't have a Martha Stewart assistant that would put all this stuff together for me. So I am actually taking a little bit of this. It can get messy. A lot of times I ask for students to be the helpers to help me put this stuff together, but I didn't feel like that during the quarantine it was great to bring the kids in here, except for my godchild, but she's over there playing a game. So you just simply put the pudding in the bag. You also, pumpkins are seasonal, so luckily I had some pumpkin in my cupboard this morning because I looked yesterday and didn't see any. So it just depends on your store, but just be careful. One year I bought pumpkin mix and it tasted very different because I think it's important for the kids to see, as well as the pumpkin, there's ground cinnamon, and it's great to talk about where does cinnamon come from? Where does it grow? What country does it grow from? Or countries, and then the ginger. So it's a great little measurement tool, and just thinking about agriculture, what it looks like around the world. While I'm putting this in, I can tell you what kind of farm nerd I am. So, and I'm just simply putting the pumpkin, and the kids think it looks like baby poop. So let's let them giggle. My husband and I were on a cruise a few years ago, and Jamaica was one of the stops. And, most of the time when you go to Jamaica, you're doing snorkeling or you're doing some kind of fun activity. Well, the nerd in me decided I wanted to do a farm excursion. So Brad Nicely was just like, what? So we went on a farm excursion in Jamaica, had the best day. We were given all kinds of examples of farming in Jamaica. It's very different than farming in the United States and even farming in the East Tennessee. So it was wonderful to see all of those wonderful spices growing, being able to see the coffee and different things. And so and chocolate, the chocolate bean, and just to see all that stuff and hear the perspective of the Jamaican on how they use a lot of advancements that we use from the 50s and 60s, to tell you the truth. And it was a really great experience. My husband called our kids that night, and they were asking what kind of wonderful parasailing activities we did or whatever. And my husband said, your mom, we went on a farm. So you can go on a farm excursion on cruise ships, a little quick tip. So I've added, and you noticed, I did not measure the cinnamon or the ginger. That's a no-no, I know, but a little dab of do you, and I can eyeball it, like my grandmother says, and I can do it right. So the big thing is the kids they love this. They love squishing. So squish, squish, squish. And for the younger grades, if we do this as a group activity, we pass it around and the kids get a kick out of it. If you're using the milk and the powdered pudding, it tends to get cooler, and the kids like that too. And so, but let me caution you, just be careful, because you will always have an over exuberant student that will try to smash it and make a mess. So just, give them, model what your expectation is for the smushing of the ingredients. And so after you've done that, you're ready. This is actually the core piece of pumpkin pie in the bag. Now, another item that you need to be making or have the kids making is you need a small snack size baggie. I have tons of these because I use them for so many things. So a small baggie, and then you're going to take a couple of the graham crackers, and I like cinnamon, but you can also get low fat. So the cinnamon or the just plain graham crackers. Now this is according to your taste. Some people really like a graham cracker crust that's thick, so you can just fill this thing full. I don't tend to like it that much, so I'll just put a couple. And this is the fun part too. So you can have the kids, they're going to squish it. Yes, you can buy the crumbs already done, but you know what? Make these kids work for their food. So they are going to be squishing and making their own graham cracker crust. And one kid said, Miss Nicely, you know, I could have my mom. We don't have to buy those expensive crumbs anymore. We can just do this and make our own graham cracker crust when we're making a chocolate pie. And I'm like, oh, you're genius. You're so smart. So I've made my crust, and I have this fabulous, fancy solo cup. You can use fancier cups if you want to, if you're having a dinner party. But I would caution you on having a dinner party with a bunch of fourth graders. It probably wouldn't go too well with your fine china. Although one of our custodians told me that he took this quick pumpkin pie recipe and made it at Thanksgiving and put it in their china cups for some of their guests, and they thought it was the nicest, most decadent dessert. Who knew? So you have your graham cracker crust, and then you're going to, this makes it fun as well, you sort of turn this into a pastry bag, and you're going to cut the end of the bag, which I'm not going to do right now, and then you just squish it in to the cup. And then for another added bonus, you can add the wonderful whipped topping on top and put a couple of sprinkles of cinnamon, which I'm actually making the rest of this with Boys and Girls Club in a few minutes, so we don't waste any of the food. So they're going to have pumpkin pie in a bag with the wonderful whipped topping on top and the sprinkles of cinnamon. So this is a crowd pleaser. It's a great way to incorporate eating again and where your food comes from. And, you know, you can also bring in that real pumpkin and bring those seeds out and count them and, you know, roast those pumpkin seeds. And it's just, it really fits in Knox County. We have a 2-day Thanksgiving week. And so our school does these kind of activities on those 2 days because, you know, as well as I do, I give them a break from doing those reading groups and things on those 2 days. And so this is where the fun's at. This is what the kids remember at the end of the school year. We reflect on the school year, are the catapults and the pumpkin pie in the bag and where your food comes from. They don't really talk about Reading Street or I Already Test. They talk about these kind of activities that make it fun. So I hope you all try some pumpkin pie in a bag, and it'd be interesting to hear what your kids think about it. So I think we're ready to go on to the online resources, which we have plenty, lots of good ones.
Thanks. Go ahead.
Just a real quick,
You're me.
we wanted to tie in your catapults, your counting of pumpkin seeds, your pumpkin pie in a bag. All of those are really easy to tie in. Kindergarten is really big, and I know it's all the way throughout elementary school, but talking about the life cycles, pumpkin is a really great way to tie that in and extend it as well. I did this pumpkin pie in a bag with my pre-K and kindergarten students. And at the beginning of our breakout today, I mentioned that if any moment you can get these kids involved in helping you, they will eat it. And every one of my pre-K and kindergarten students tried it. I was surprised that they were begging for more on some. They were like, Mom makes this, but I never want to eat it, so I'll eat it this year. So that's really interesting to kind of help them experience foods that they haven't had access to or that they never wanted to try before.
Okay, so I guess that concludes our activities. The first resource that I want to share with you is our Instagram page. One of our consultants runs and does a wonderful job, and she posts daily throughout the year. She'll post activities that maybe she's doing in her class or the other teachers across the state have tagged her in or sent to her, and she'll post those. So that's at TNAG_classroom, and that's on Instagram. And then I'm going to attempt to share my screen. Okay, can y'all still hear me? Okay, so this is the first resource. This is the National Ag in the Classroom homepage. They have a wonderful resource called the Curriculum Matrix. down here at the bottom. On the curriculum matrix, you can search by grade level, you can search by content area, you can do a detailed search. Let's do the aquaponics, see if we can pull that one up. The wonderful thing about this resource, I will say that I love about it, is all of your, let me spell it correctly, sorry about that. All of your legwork has been done for you. So if there are videos that you want to include in your lesson or printables or things like that, they have compiled them all together. Okay. So for example, like here's your video, your objectives. Okay, this one right here, the What is Aquaponics is the video that Miss Valerie was trying to show us today, and it's wonderful. We need to, if you get a chance to go back and watch it on your own time, this is where you can find it. Printables, other resources at the bottom, essential files, vocabulary, if you need those kinds of things are all put together. So it simplifies it for you as the teacher, which I think is wonderful. We all need an easy access to the things that we're trying to teach the kids. Again, you can search by grade level, content area, depending on what your specialty is or the subject that you're teaching. You can do weather. But I really do like that any video that goes with this lesson, any printables, they're all right there together. That's one thing that stands out to me. Do you have anything to add, Miss Valerie? Okay, so here is an activity about weather, the climate change. There's an article added. Here's some files, maps, charts, and documents. I think it's just a very valuable resource in addition to what you've already received today. Also on the National Ag in the Classroom website, you can get information about the National Ag in the Classroom workshops, events that are happening, agritourism. There are probably virtual farms that you can tour with your classes right this very minute. Let's see. All right. Here's the journey2050.com. This is this the one with, this has the games, or is that the Farmers 2050 that has the app, right?
So Farmers 2050 is the just game. Journey 2050 is meant specifically for classrooms. It is a game, video game type aspect of it, but it also is informational in the process.
Okay, so this game, for example, when I discussed soil samples earlier, the thing that I appreciate about this game is the graphics are very true to life. When my husband is on the planter or the sprayer, the graphics are very true. So when he's spraying and putting down fertilizer and things like that, I appreciated that. For example, in your field, you might only need just a little bit of nitrogen and a lot of phosphorus and things like that. So I appreciated the graphics and what the students can actually grow a crop from all over the world and harvest their crops, and then they get to make the choice of how to spend their money, how much to put back into their business, how much to put out into the community, how much are they going to spend to live. And those are real choices that farmers have to make. And that is one of the things that I appreciate so much about this game. Also on this game, it will have, you can meet actual farmers in those particular areas all over the world. So that's interesting, and I think the kids will enjoy that aspect of the game as well. Anything to add on that one?
JoAnn, let me jump in just a minute.
Yeah.
agclassroom.org, when you were showing the matrix, it does have a feature where they can create a binder And that binder lets them save their lesson plan so they don't have to go hunting for it all the time. And anytime we make updates to those, it'll automatically be updated in their binder. And all that takes is an email address, I think, that goes into that. Hopefully, within the year, we'll have that the matrix on our Tennessee Ag in the Classroom webpage, and not just on the national, but it will be the same one.
All right, myamericanfarm.org is another online resource with games. Again, it has it broken down into grade level. These games are, oh, and it has apps too. I can't see that. So for parents and educators, your subjects, themes, that kind of thing. These are games that the kids can play. So if you want to share these resources with your kids, those are K2 games. They have, it appears they have downloads in the app stores as well. So that might be something that you guys could use for your, especially depending on how it's going to go this year. Other things that I wanted to discuss in our online, anything to add on the American Farm Bureau? Anybody? All right. Questions about those? The Ag Simulator is produced, and you can reserve that here at the Tennessee Farm Bureau. If you contact or email Mr. Chris and Mr. Dan, and they can arrange that. It goes all, and what it basically is it is the cab of a combine. They have it. The kids can get into the cab. It is an actual cab, but it has the videos of harvesting soybeans, wheat, corn, and it has the TV screens, so the kids virtually feel like they are actually harvesting. It's perfect to bring. They'll bring it to your schools, and the kids can rotate through there. I know, obviously, depending on how things go this year, that option, might be a little bit limited. But if I know a lot of fairs have had them in the past. A lot of the schools would reserve it and let their kids go through it. And so it's just something neat for the kids to see what the inside of the equipment's like, what the row crops look like when they are at maturity, and harvesting them, and the process of all that, like getting it out of the field, and then they take it to the granary, and and where does it go from there? So all of those are concepts that need to be discussed. And incorporated are the virtual reality goggles. Again, that would be something that this year we'll just have to see, but it's they use the iPods, and I have used these actually for church events, anything for just the kids. We used them at the fair, but I think we did the beehive, and they wear the VR goggles, and so for small children, I wouldn't recommend it for small children. They felt like they were really in the beehive, but they were really easy to use. So if you've never used anything like that, and in the future, hopefully you're able to do that. There's the poultry. There are lots of different aspects of agriculture that the kids can actually see, and they are a class set.
Other states is Illinois, and you may have said that because I had to go run and take care of something real fast. So Illinois has a really good Ag in the Classroom plethora of ideas, and a library of downloadable activities that you can readily use. And there are some really other good ones too. But we're very fortunate in Tennessee to have the organization that we have and the resources. I noticed that California, I get a monthly update from California, and Florida's Ag in the Classroom, people as well. And, not always have they done gardening grants. And so the fact that we've been doing them for over 25 years is very commendable, that our leadership saw a need to put those in the classroom. And I'll tell you, my goal would be to have one in every classroom in Knox County. We probably have about a third of the schools that have a garden. But I want to encourage you all to apply, but also have a sustainability plan. because there are a couple of schools that I was at that we had grape arbors and fruit trees and things, and the mowers mowed down things because the person that went in, didn't have time to, or didn't delegate it to anybody else. And so those projects died because there wasn't a sustainability plan. So I encourage you all, if you're going to do a garden, just think beyond 1 year. Think about and encourage your community to support it, because you can't do it by yourself, and teach and do all those things that you need to do. So I encourage you to think of sustainability plan and involve your librarian and your cafeteria and your retired community and gardening clubs, and because and farmers. My dad is a retired farmer, but he is on probably half the applications that are turned in, just because he knows quite a bit about growing things. And goodness, I was just thinking, he still uses that old Farmer's Almanac to for his growing seasons, and that's a whole lesson in itself. Talk about Farmer's Almanac and how the signs affect how you plant things, and the calendars. And in fact, the local funeral home gives out those calendars with the signs in them. And there's a lot of science behind that. It really is. It's not just this old Appalachian hillbilly mumbo jumbo. There is science behind the planting seasons, for sure.
A few more minutes, and I want to just take a few seconds and say hats off to you educators. We appreciate you taking your time out of your very hectic and unusual summer break. I know you guys have been probably bombarded and overwhelmed with other technology workshops and professional development to figure out how you are going to be the best that you can be in the way that the world is today. And all of the unknowns and the added stress that has been placed upon you, and you've been called to charge on, even in the uncharted waters. So we commend you for that, and we thank you definitely for taking the time to join us today. And we hope that you can take something that we've done today and some information that we've given you, and just tuck it away in your toolbox, and y'all just go out there and rock this school year the best that you can. And just take it one day at a time. But I thank you from the bottom of my heart. That was y'all been in the forefront of my mind, and it's uncertain what you're going to behold, and but you can do it, and we'll just do the best that we can. You might have anything else to say?
Yes, and thank you for being patient with us. With it being our first virtual training, it's very different than what we're used to, which is working perfectly with the year 2020 for sure. And we're really thankful that you joined us today.
It's definitely, we're definitely just a resource, just an email away, guys. And if you need to get in touch with us, Chris and Christy, definitely just call the home office or whatever. But we do go out occasionally, do workshops at schools. So if if you're new to, your school is new to gardening or ag in the classroom, and you're like, hey, I think we have an administrator that would just take this and eat it. We are positioned in different parts of the state to where we can definitely at no cost come to you and maybe not bring the tubs, but bring activities at no cost to your school if we have a gathering of like-minded teachers that would like to learn more. So just keep that in the back of your mind too. And we're obviously we're available for virtual. We'll just thanks for letting us try some of this stuff on you guys. I promise we're learning. I'm learning at least. I mean, they did. Gosh, JoAnn and Valerie did a great job, but I am definitely learning. So it's definitely been a great day, and it's went by quickly. So